Traces of fear. What investigators found inside Menglong's killer's hideout. The ocean had calmed that morning, but the silence that hung over the investigation site was heavier than the clouds above it. For weeks, the world had been drowning in speculation about his death, his secrets, his letters, his son. But none of it felt real until they found the house. A small cabin hidden deep within the cliffs, where the waves hit the rocks like a heartbeat gone wrong. The locals called it the Still House. No one lived there, they said. No one had for years. But that day, as the door swung open beneath a trembling flashlight beam, the air smelled of recent life. And fear. The entryway. Detective Liang had seen death before. He'd walked through smoke-stained apartments, empty stages, quiet hotel rooms where fame had burned too bright. But this was different. The house didn't feel abandoned, it felt paused. As though someone had stepped out only moments ago, leaving everything mid-breath. Dust danced like memory in the flashlight glow. A coffee cup sat half full on the counter. The air was still warm enough to believe someone might return. Then came the first clue, a red cap, small, child-sized, hanging on the wall. It was faded now, but unmistakable. Every fan in the world knew that cap from the photos, the one worn by the boy Menglong once held near the sea. Liang's breath caught. The room felt smaller suddenly, as if it were listening. The walls that whispered. On the far side of the living room, he found something strange. The walls were covered in newspaper clippings, hundreds of them, all about Menglong. Premiere nights, interviews, candid shots of him smiling, laughing, existing. But every article was marked. Words underlined in red. Circles. Notes scribbled in the margins like private commentary. He lies again. She knows. Find the sea. Liang traced one note with his gloved hand. The handwriting was jagged, impatient, more like a man unraveling than plotting. Whoever had lived here wasn't just obsessed. They were haunted. Then came the recordings. A small cassette player sat on the shelf beside a half-burnt candle. He pressed play. Static. Then a voice, low, male, trembling on the edge of guilt. He wasn't supposed to die. I only wanted the truth. The tape clicked off. Liang froze. His reflection in the dark window seemed to stare back in accusation. The room upstairs. They moved slowly up the narrow staircase. Each creak sounded like a question the house was daring them to ask. At the top was a door painted blue, the same shade fans remembered from Menglong's seaside letters. Liang pushed it open and stepped into what looked like a shrine disguised as a room. There were photographs everywhere, pinned, taped, arranged in obsessive symmetry. But none of them were of the actors smiling on red carpets. These were personal, private, moments no one had ever seen before. A picture of him feeding stray cats by a pier. Another of him asleep in a train seat, head against the window. And one, Liang's chest tightened, of him holding a baby wrapped in yellow. Pinned beneath it was a note written in the same jagged hand. He thought love could save him. In the corner stood an easel with a painting half-finished. It was Yu's face, soft, almost peaceful, but the eyes were missing, left blank as though the painter couldn't decide what expression they deserved. The journal. They found it beneath the bed, a leather notebook cracked at the spine. Liang flipped it open, and the air changed again. It wasn't a killer's confession. It was a chronicle. Page after page of fragmented sentences, lists, thoughts, dates. The earliest entry was from 4 years before Yu's death. He lied on camera again today. Said he has no family. But I saw them. I saw her. I saw the boy. The next few pages were torn. Then, they made me keep quiet. Said it would ruin him. But who ruined who? Liang kept reading. Each entry drifted closer to madness until the words became symbols, drawings of waves, eyes, fire. And then, finally, one last coherent sentence. He wasn't supposed to die there. He was supposed to tell the truth. The mirror room. Behind the wardrobe, an investigator found a hidden door, a false wall that opened with a click. Inside was a narrow space lined entirely with mirrors. Dozens of them, facing each other, creating an infinite reflection that felt almost alive. On the floor, someone had written in chalk, "If you love him, look at yourself." Liang's flashlight caught something glinting on the opposite side, a photograph taped to one of the mirrors. It was the same boy again, older this time, standing by the sea, holding a paper boat. The edges of the photo were smeared with salt water, or perhaps tears. Below it, another note. "He will finish what was left undone." The words seemed to hum through the air, as if echoing from the ocean outside. The revelation. As the night deepened, the team cataloged every piece of evidence. Every clipping, every tape, every haunting fragment of obsession. But there was something deeper beneath it all, something that didn't belong to crime, but to sorrow. Whoever had stayed in that hideout hadn't been a killer in the simple sense. They were a shadow of someone broken by love, guilt, and truth withheld too long. And somehow, that shadow had become the key to the entire mystery. Liang stood at the door as dawn painted the sea gold. He looked once more at the red cap hanging by the entrance. In that quiet, he felt it, not closure, but connection. The same way Menglong once stood by the ocean and whispered promises to a child who couldn't speak them aloud. It wasn't just a crime scene anymore. It was a confession carved into time. The last tape. Days later, while cataloging evidence, Liang discovered a second cassette wedged inside the recorder. It wasn't labeled. He pressed play. There was silence at first. Then, faintly, a soft voice, unmistakable. "Menglong's. If you're hearing this, it means truth has caught up to me. I tried to protect what was real. But maybe love was the most dangerous secret of all." A pause. Then another voice, unfamiliar, shaking. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I just wanted you to stop lying." The tape clicked off before the next sentence could form. Liang stared at it for a long time. Two voices, two truths, forever tangled. The hidden symbol. When the photos from the hideout were released to the public, fans noticed something strange. In nearly every image, hidden somewhere small, a candle, a mirror, a wall corner, appeared a symbol, a wave curling into a heart. They called it the ocean mark. Some said it was his secret signature, something he'd used in his private sketches. Others believed it was the mark of his admirer, or the one who took everything too far. But those who'd followed his story from the beginning knew what it really meant. It was the same design he'd once drawn on the paper boats for his son. The ending that wasn't one. Months later, when the investigation closed without an official suspect, Liang returned to the sea. The house had been sealed off, left to the elements again. He walked the shoreline where the tide met the stones, feeling the same chill that had followed him since that night. In the distance he saw a figure. A young man, cap pulled low, standing where the water met the horizon. For a second, the detective thought it was a ghost. Echoes in the hideout. The rain came back the next night, slicing through the fog like silver wires. The cabin crouched beneath it, half shadow, half confession, its wooden bones groaning with each gust. Liang returned, alone this time, carrying only a lantern and the echo of the tape he couldn't stop hearing. He wasn't supposed to die. "I only wanted the truth." Those words played on a loop in his mind, sinking with the rhythmic drip of water leaking through the roof. He told himself he was here for evidence, but deep down he wanted something else. Understanding. The return. Inside, the air had changed. The dust that once coated everything now lay disturbed, footprints pressed faintly across the floorboards. Fresh ones. Someone had been here since the investigation. Liang's heart tightened. He followed the prints toward the back corridor where they disappeared behind the blue door. The same blue that had haunted him for days. He hesitated, then pushed it open again. The shrine room flickered alive under his lantern. The photographs trembled in the draft. And there, on the easel that once held Menglong's unfinished portrait, lay something new, a single white feather, glistening wet. It hadn't been there before. The feather and the frame. Liang picked it up carefully. It smelled faintly of sea salt. Beneath the easel, he found a frame face down on the floor. When he lifted it, the glass had cracked, slicing across a photo of you standing on a pier at dusk. Behind the photo, a second image had been hidden. A hand-drawn map, rough, hurried. It showed the coastline, the cliffs, and a small X marked deeper inland. Next to it, one phrase scrawled in pencil. The first lie is buried beneath the stairs. The feather slipped from his hand. The stairs. He returned to the lower level, his boots echoing on the boards. The staircase creaked like it was remembering something painful. Kneeling, he shone the lantern under the first few steps. Cobwebs shimmered. Then, wood grain interrupted by a faint line. A hidden compartment. He pried it open. Inside was a metal box, rusted and locked with a ribbon of red silk. The kind used in stage costumes. Yu had worn that exact color in his final performance. Liang's hands trembled as he broke the ribbon. Inside the box, a silver pendant shaped like a wave, a stack of photos, and a torn letter. The letter. The ink had bled from damp, but fragments survived. If they find out, everything ends. Keep him safe. Don't come back to the sea. And signed with 3 initials. LMH. Liang frowned. Those letters appeared once before, in the journal found upstairs, beside the note. He thought love could save him. It wasn't the handwriting of the person who wrote the angry notes. It was softer, steadier. Whoever LMH was, they weren't the enemy. They were the other half of a secret love story that had gone wrong. The whisper room. As thunder rolled outside, Liang noticed something odd. The cassette player light blinked again. The first tape had been removed, replaced by another unlabeled one. He pressed play. A faint lullaby filled the room, a child's tune, off-key, echoing. Then the same trembling male voice. He used to sing this when he couldn't sleep. Said the sea answered him back. A pause. Then another voice, a woman's this time, broken but clear. You promised to protect him. You promised not to let the past find us. The tape ended with a breath, a whisper almost lost in static. Forgive me, Long. Liang rewound it twice, certain he'd imagined it. But the name Long was there, unmistakable. Someone close. Someone who had known you by the name used only among friends. The painting speaks. Drawn back upstairs, Liang stared again at the unfinished portrait. In the flickering lantern light, something glimmered beneath the blank eyes. He leaned closer and realized paint hadn't dried, it had been scratched away. Beneath the top layer, faint letters were carved directly into the canvas. Look beyond the wave. He turned the painting over. Taped to the back was a photograph, the same boy from before, now holding the silver pendant he'd just found. On the reverse, in small script, he carries the truth. The implications struck him cold. Whoever lived here hadn't killed Yu Menglong. They had protected what was left behind, his child, his secret, the life he couldn't live in daylight. The footsteps. A floorboard creaked. Liang froze. The lantern flame flickered. In the reflection of the cracked mirror across the room, a silhouette moved near the stairs, a tall figure in a dark coat, hood drawn. Who's there? Liang called, his voice steadier than he felt. No answer. He stepped into the hall, the beam of the lantern slicing through the darkness. The front door stood open, rain pouring in. Only one trace remained, a trail of wet footprints leading toward the cliffs. He followed. The cliffs. The storm had grown wild. Lightning split the horizon, revealing the sea writhing below. At the edge, the figure stood unmoving, facing the water. Stop! Liang shouted over the wind. The figure turned slightly, just enough for the lantern light to catch a pale scar running down his jaw. For a heartbeat, Liang thought he saw Yu Menglong himself. The resemblance was uncanny, like a ghost sculpted from grief. Then the man spoke, quiet, trembling. He told me to stay hidden, but how long can love hide? Before Liang could respond, the figure dropped something onto the rocks, a small object that gleamed before rolling toward the sea. A cassette. By the time Liang reached the spot, the stranger was gone. The final recording. Back inside, drenched and shaking, he inserted the new tape into the player. The room fell silent except for the storm outside. Yu Menglong's voice again, clearer this time, as if time itself wanted to be heard. If they find this place, they'll think it was built for hate. But it wasn't. It was built for memory. Every lie I told was meant to keep love safe. He paused. Rain tapped the window like tears. If the world wants a villain, let it be me. But the truth doesn't die. It hides until the right heart listens. The tape clicked off. Liang sat motionless, staring at the feather on the table, the portrait's eyeless gaze, the empty space where the stranger had stood. He realized then that the hideout wasn't a killer's lair. It was a sanctuary for all the things Menglong could never say aloud.
Dawn.
When morning came, the storm subsided, leaving the cliffs washed clean. Liang stepped outside and found the feather again, carried to the doorway by the wind. He picked it up and smiled faintly. Somewhere across the sea, a boy, now grown, would one day learn why his father hid so much and why a house built in fear still sang of love. And the world would keep calling it the killer's hideout. But those who listened closely to the waves would know the truth. It was the last place where love dared to breathe.